Dallas Famous podcast is supported by the Mullen Mullen Music Project. The music project was created by Mullen & Mullen Injury Law Firm to champion the independent music scene in North Texas. I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up? Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all for us? Yeah.
This week on the Dallas Famous Podcast, we're chatting with Damany Daniel, known as the Event Nerd. Damany is a creative force in experience design, working with major brands to create unforgettable live events that blend technology, storytelling, and purpose. From immersive brand launches to community-driven activation, he brings a strategic vision and a passion for connecting people. A speaker, mentor, and deep thinker on impactful events, he shares his journey, insights on memorable experiences, and predictions for the future of gatherings. Let's dive into this conversation with the Event Nerd, Damany Daniel. Full disclosure, I'm a one-man band here, and this one got lost in a hard drive somewhere, and I just discovered it, and I send my sincere apologies to Damany. I hope you enjoy it. It's definitely worth the wait. Here we go. Hello again. We are here at the Deep Ellum Community Center. I've got Damany Daniels with the silent J.
Yeah, very silent J.
We could start with that. We were just talking about names, but what is that about?
Yeah, I get that a lot. People email me and say, Jay, so good to meet you, and they're confused. Jay, my first name is James. My father's first name was James. My grandfather's first name was James. And my mom and my father kind of had an arrangement, and it was, hey, I don't want my kid to be a third, so you got to figure that out. And so Damany was the name that he kind of inserted. But for a long time in elementary school, middle school, and high school, I was two people, because in school, where you looked at the government roles, I was James Daniel. Every school, every teacher, every professor through high school knew me as James. But literally as soon as I would walk out the door or walk into the front door of my house or get to a friend's house, I was Damany. And then when I got to college, I was like, oh wait, I get to choose how you refer to me? Yeah, we're gonna go with Damany, because I was living at school, so it didn't really make sense for me to be James in the classroom and then go to the dorm room and be Damany. That would get very confusing very fast. So yeah, Damany.
I don't know if I've ever met a Damany, and also it's a great name. And once I've heard it out loud, it's really easy to say.
It trips people up, and they get so. Some people get so intimidated. They add letters to it. I've been DeMonte. I've been Del Monte. People who think that I haven't heard the joke of, you mean like the fruit? Yes, because I've been alive for 42 years and I've never heard that joke before. But I mean, that's the upside of it, is having a unique name. The downside of it is, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say, if you're talking about Damany in certain parts of Dallas, you're talking about me, which is, I mean, I don't do anything that would get me in trouble,
right.
But I definitely am not doing anything that will get me in trouble now, because I don't know very many Damanys. I'm actually friends with like the 4 or 5 other Damanys on Facebook.
Funny. Yeah, that's wild. And so, that's true. It's like, oh, Damany. Oh, yeah, well, I know that Damany.
Yeah, it's like.
Huh. Well, and then it's funny, because then you're also known as the Event Nerd.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, like, to start with.
Yeah, so I started a company many years ago, probably 15-ish years ago. I was working for a company called Eventbrite. I was one of the earlier employees of Eventbrite.
Wow.
And my job was to connect in Dallas and the DFW area, because Eventbrite was brand new and people were using Excel spreadsheets to like check folks into events. And so my job was to connect with as many event organizers, music makers, creators as possible, and teach them how to use Eventbrite, right? Along the way, I realized that there was this massive gap between the technology that people could have access to make their events better, like Eventbrite, but also like others, and the events that were happening. And so you had these art experiences, these cultural experiences, these music experiences, these corporate experiences that all felt like you know that right over there's something really, really cool, but you don't know about it because you're living in your world. And so when I left Eventbrite, a buddy of mine asked me, he's like, hey, I'm looking for I don't even remember what it was. I'm looking for a piece of technology for my event that does schmoogity boop. I don't know what it was. And I was like, oh, well, you need to call Bob. And Bob has this new software platform that he was just telling me about that does schmoogity boop. And then if not Bob, talk to Susan, because Susan also has something. And so he was like, you just knew that? I was like, yeah, because I just talked to people, right? And I had met Bob and I had met Susan, names redacted to protect the fact that I don't remember. But I had met these people. And so along the way, I was like, you know what? Let's start a company. And so I started a company. I called it, well, actually, I didn't call it the Event Nerd. I started a company and I was just going around talking and speaking about how events can be made better, more artistic, more creative using technology. And there was a special event magazine listed me as one of the 30 under 40 to watch. And in it, they called me the Event Nerd. Because I was my goal was to make the complicated elements of technology and production as simple as possible. I'm as I like to say, recovering audio engineer. That's what I went to college for, and then realized I didn't love it and also wasn't that good at it. But I understood how to take the complex things about production and make it so that every client, every person that I interacted with could understand it. And so they called me the Event Nerd, gave me a little description. I hit up the publisher and I was like, hey, I like that. Can I take that as a moniker / the name of my company? And Lisa Hurley, who was then the publisher of Special Event Magazine, was like, oh my God, I love it. Do it. I like to call her the godmother of the event nerd. But yeah, that's the idea is I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd at heart. I'm a nerd.
I was going to say you walked in. That's not my impression, but okay. I'll let you define yourself.
Part of that is like when I was actually coming up with the name, the woman who designed my logo, good friend of mine, Misty Browning Sanford. She and her husband now own Manhattan Project Brewery, amazing brewery in Dallas. Okay, sure. And she was designing the logo, and I told her what the name was, and she was like, I don't like it. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I don't like nerd. Nerd's not cool. You need to be, this is what, 14 years ago. You need to be like the event geek, because geek was cool. Geek squad,
right.
Nerds were not. Nerds were Revenge of the Nerds, glasses with the, right? And so she was like, I don't think you need to be the event geek. And I was like, I hear you, I respect that, but nah, we're going to do Event Nerd. And a lot of that was because of the concept surrounding nerds. I, for a long time, had a podcast called Casually Creative, where we talked about conversations about everyday creativity and everyday nerdiness. Everyone's a nerd about something. And this idea that nerds have to behave a certain way is kind of silly to me. Someone once said, you can either be a nerd or work for one.
I never heard that.
And so I like it, but I like the idea of nerd doesn't necessarily mean that you're defined by the way that you dress, the way that you look, the way that you even act. I think of a nerd as someone who is passionate about something. You're a photographer. I would bet good money that if I started talking to you about locations, aperture settings, lighting, like there are so many things that you could just start. Oh, well, one time I was in Prague and I used this. I was talking
people
to
will shut it off,
right? But that's the thing that you're nerdy about, and that's probably not the only thing that you're nerdy about.
Sure.
So when I say the event nerd, I love technology. I really do. I love seeing how technology can transform a space, not just, computers and boop boops, but lighting and projection and photography, and how do all of these elements come together creatively to create an event, to create an experience? Because that's the other side of it, is I really love getting people together. I think people getting together in spaces is really, really powerful. By the tens, by the hundreds, by the thousands, or the 10,000s, I think it's really powerful. And if you can take nerdiness and mix it with people and give them a better experience, I think that's pretty fucking dope.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's interesting because for me, for years, decades, I was working events just at the low level. I was the BA or schlepper or checking you in, that stuff. So I have a different view of events. I liked working on them. There was a lot that felt inefficient back then. Yeah. And granted, I worked on 100 things too, like all over in LA and everything. But it's interesting because you don't just do events like you said. You have the podcast. Like I've seen interviews you've done. Like it's like you're kind of like I guess a champion of events, making them good. I mean, that's kind of like your whole brand, right?
The things that I'm passionate about, I think that's the easier way to describe it, because I'm passionate about a few things, but the things that I'm kind of most passionate about are accessibility of the arts, right? And not just accessibility in the sense that do I have to pay to go to a museum, or is there access to the art in my public space, but also how do we make the art more integrated into everything that we do, even on the event side, right? It's always frustrated me when I go to events and I go to a convention center, let's just say, or a meeting facility, and outside the doors of the meeting facility, there's graffiti on the walls, or there is a sculpture that I walked by, or there is an advertisement on the billboard. All of these things are art. Or there's a musician playing on the street corner that you rocked out to for a little bit before walking into the convention. And then you walk into the conference and it's cold and it's stoic, and it's like, and then when you leave the conference, you go to find the nearest art. You go to find the art of the cocktail, or the art of the great meal, or the art of the performer late at night during COVID, when everybody was like freaking out, but Audible downloads increased and people were watching documentaries. So during these moments when things are difficult, we run to the arts. So why shouldn't we integrate more of them into the experiences? So that's one side of it, is how do we get access and integrate more of the arts into more experiences that we create? And then, how do we make events better? How do we make events so that people feel like they're supposed to be there, not like they have to be there? How do you make the environment, from the color selection to the way that you tune the audio to how you use projection or lighting or music choice, and where music or speaking fits in an event framework? How do you use all of that so that the person sitting at the back of the room doesn't know that you did all of that, but has the best moment of their life? There's a picture from an event that we did at Bomb Factory back in 2018. It was a concert featuring like 4 headlining artists, and paired them with local Dallas arts organization. So it was like Big Gigantic and the Dallas Mavs drumline, Kaleo and one of the ballets in Dallas. I just forgotten. I'm sorry. Jacob Banks and the Booker T. Washington Gospel Choir, and the Nas and the members of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. And there's this picture that our photographer caught. It's this couple at the back of the room. So, you got Bomb Factory, big space, the photographer standing inside front of house, and you see the stage really blown out because it's like a really pop, you're a photographer,
Sure.
Stage is really blown out. You've got this depth of field, so you just see the crowd, and this guy and this girl just like having this kiss. And it's so fucking cool.
Nice.
That the lights and the sound on the stage and everything in that room contributed to that moment for those two people. Right. Those two people had a very different experience than the other 4,000 that were in the room because of decisions that were made many months before they showed up.
Yeah. Wow.
Love had a lot to do with it, obviously, and I really hope they're still together. Love had a lot to do with it, obviously. But I also know that kiss didn't happen like that when they were waiting outside.
Right.
That kiss didn't happen like that when they were at the restaurant or the bar beforehand. This moment was because of a lot of things that came together at just the right moment for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got to say, I love I've seen this too, because I worked on sets, and it's like where you see the art in every department for like making the food for the caterer. There's art in that. I mean,
at scale.
Yeah.
You got to make food for hundreds of people and have it taste good.
Yeah. All day long. Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. There's a lot to that. It's funny. I did actually shoot I probably shot more than one of your events, but I was at the Questlove.
Questlove's Hip Hop Brunch.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. That was cool. That was a while ago. You're not over at the Bomb Factory because that's changed the ownership. But like, are those events, like, how much of that is like they come to you and say we're going to do this, or is that your idea, or how does that kind of come together?
So in those for those two instances, we had a very great client that we worked with. Capital One was we did a lot of great work with Capital One, from South by Southwest, with some agencies that we were working under, all the way through to the 2018 array thing I just talked about, the 2022 Questlove's Hip Hop Brunch. Capital One had has always had a vision and had a vision to really integrate themselves into people's lives, right? And to not make it feel ham-fisted and awkward. I like to call them faux-social events, F-A-U-X, like faux social events. Because Capital One's a company, right? They're a bank. And they lend money, and you can buy your car, and you can do all these things. But these events weren't that. No time did Capital One get up on stage and say, "Thank you so much, Mr. Love. Would you like a car?" Like, that didn't happen.
Right.
It was just presented by Capital One.
Right.
So it was a social event. So Capital One in both of those instances had a vision for engaging the arts in a more intentional way. They wanted to make the arts and people get connected more effectively. The president of Capital One Auto Finance had a vision and believed that if you create an environment that people want to live in, a city that gives people things to do, then you get the best talent. It's not just how can you pay them better, it's how can the culture and the community surrounding them be great. And so he kind of gave us the vision, and another agency that we were working with at the time, that we were working alongside at the time, to create some really dope experiences. And so we went through a couple of different iterations of what this could look like: partnership between the DSO and an EDM artist, partnership between it varies. And then what came to the top was, well, let's get a hip hop artist with Questlove. Let's get a hip hop artist. We didn't even know it was going to be Questlove at first. Let's get a hip hop artist, pair him with the symphony. And that was kind of where we were. And then we were sitting in a meeting, and I was like, what if we made it a brunch? And they were like, what do you mean? I said, well, culturally, hip-hop brunches are a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're a thing. And if we, instead of it just being a concert, Questlove gets on stage and like plays some music, what if we did this thing? What if we had Questlove give us a 45-minute extended sample where he chopped up the break beats and the choruses, musical choruses that he feels have been the bedrock of hip hop over the years? What if he gave that to us? What if we hired a composer, Sly Fifth Avenue, out of Austin/Mexico, depending on the day? And what if we composed something, and the DSO performed it, and then Stro Elliott was there, and so Stro Elliott was the drummer. So you have Stro Elliott, Questlove, the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, but then you also had, as you saw, Big Thought doing spoken word, and you had the Dallas Black Dance Theater doing performances. So it was this moment, and the food was really good. So and then just to layer in back to the whole nerd side of it, we projection mapped it, because it made it a little bit cooler to have lighting and projection all around you. Yeah. The focus was Questlove, but we could enhance it. And so it's a mixed bag. That's an example of a lot of times how some of these bigger kind of iconic events happen. Is there's a client who has the beginning or maybe the middle of a vision, and they come to us and say, okay, what else can we do? Right. And we will, call our friends, call our art friends, call our artists that we've been working with for almost 2 decades, and our musicians, and say, okay, you guys trust us by now, right? Okay, cool. So I have an idea. Hear me out. Right. And then the client is by the same way. The client says, do you trust me, client? Yes. Okay, great. I have an idea. And that's kind of how it comes together. You have a client that you build some trust with. You have partners, artists, creators, designers, developers, crazy people who don't say no to things, who have developed trust. And then you stand in the middle and say, all right, stay with me on this. Let's build something really dope.
Are you finding in this economical climate that there's less clients that are capable of doing a cool thing, or maybe their focus shifts because they're worried about other issues?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, clients... And no, I hate when people answer that way on anything, but I'll explain what I mean. Yes, there is an automatic reticence. There can be an automatic reticence to try new things, big things, because there's risk, because there's cost, because. And here's the no. And it often doesn't take as much as they think it does. One of the things, when I first moved to Dallas 16 years ago or whatever it was, I was very broke. Right. And there was some couch surfing involved. But I ended up getting connected to some organizations and some people who have become friends. So Art Love Magic was an organization that existed for a long time that was really a bedrock for the art scene, for the local art scene and local artists in Dallas. And so I got plugged in with them. and started to be surrounded by these artists who just did dope shit. And it wasn't expensive for them to do it, right? You give an artist some cardboard, some tape, and some paint, they'll build you a house. And it'll be a fucking badass house. You know what I mean? But then when I would start to do these bigger events, I'd be like, well, but why does that cost so much? I was just talking to the Davies brothers, and they built something really dope. And it wasn't $100,000, and it looked better than that, right? So I started to have these kind of realizations that there are artists who are creating great work. There are people who need really great work. Why can't we connect them? Because the artists are going to do good work at a fair price that is fair to them and for the output of the work that they've created. And oftentimes it's within or under the budget that the client in their head has made up about being an issue.
Right.
So it's a win for everybody. Artist gets paid a fair wage, because that's the most important. We're not saying, hey, we're going to give you exposure and 5 goldfish, right? Artists are being paid a fair wage. But this client over here thinks that it's going to be $100,000, and the artist is like, I can do it for 10 or 15 or whatever that number is, and that's negotiated. So when you start to explain that to the client, they're like, oh, so I can get a cool thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're like the conduit. Like, it's like you said it already. Like, the client, especially with the ones with the money, have to trust someone's idea that they don't have, because that seems like the biggest thing with people with money is like they think they have better ideas sometimes, creative speaking, and it's like, no, you made money. You're good at that. Like this is
what I do.
Yeah.
Like the thing we did with the photography thing with you. This was City of Dallas said, hey, we want to flex on the other cities. We want to flex on them. We want to throw. We're hosting a conference. This conference has been hosted in multiple other cities. We're hosting a conference in Dallas. We want the opening reception to feel like Dallas, and what you got. And so one night in the middle of the night, I had this idea. I was like, what if we can create a photo wall? But what if the photo wall, like you see it, every suburban home with, the layered pictures, some long, some short, some or some landscape, rather, some portrait. But what if it was all Dallas photographers? What if it was still inside of frames? But what if it was all projection mapped? So then it's like, well, let's just reach out to a bunch of photographers and see what happens.
Yeah.
Some that I knew. At the time, I didn't know you, but I knew someone who knew you, and they said, hey, you should trust this guy to do a thing. And they were like, you should trust this guy, you, to give you pictures. But yeah, it's about being trusted. But beyond being trusted, it's about if someone trusts you with a crazy idea that you sold them, you have to deliver the crazy idea.
Right.
Otherwise, they won't trust you the next time.
Yeah, nobody will trust you if you do that enough times. You know what we didn't do? We didn't talk about you. We haven't started your bio. I mean, I do this usually. I looked you up. You born in Brooklyn. I'm actually born in the Bronx, so
we can still be friends. It's fine.
I don't live there, so that's my excuse. And you went to school in Oklahoma. Is that right?
Yeah, I went to college in Oklahoma at Oral Roberts University, small Christian school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then ended up being in Tulsa for 9 years.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. I got out of school in 4. I didn't do extra victory laps, but I ended up staying in Tulsa for another 5 years.
I mean, I've been to Tulsa once, and I was surprised how it was a lot cooler than I expected. Yeah, I didn't, and it seems like it's cooler now than it was then even.
Yeah, I mean, I left in 2003. Eek. And no, excuse me, that's not true. I graduated in 2003. I left in 2008, 2007, and it's. Back then it was starting to change and become cooler, right? But now I go back and I'm like, y'all have some stuff. A lot of history they still have to work through. Tulsa race riot's still one of the worst in American history. There's still a significant amount of disparity that exists within some communities. And while they are, and there are people, advocates like Risha Grant and others who are advocating for that change, it's also really cool, right? I mean, it's got architecture. You talk about artistry. It's got Art Deco architecture like nobody's business. You walk around downtown and you were just walking around an Art Deco haven.
Yeah.
You've got multiple museums. You've got the obvious historic Greenwood district. So yeah, there's a lot happening in Tulsa that people don't think about. But yeah, I was there for 9 years total, and then moved to East Texas.
Huh.
To a town called, I moved to Garland, and then from Garland moved to East Texas to a town called Edom, which at the time had a population of 322 and an African American population of 1. It was me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting. That was definitely an interesting time. It was the first time that I'd lived, obviously, in such a small. I mean, I went from Brooklyn to Tulsa, and I was culture shocked when I did that. Yeah. And then I went from Tulsa to like the suburbs. I was in Firewheel for like 3 months, and then I moved to Edom. And so,
why did you move there?
Took a job. Okay. I left Tulsa to take a job in East Texas, but I was commuting from Garland, like Firewheel Estates, when Firewheel was brand new. From there, all the way, like right before, about 45 minutes before you get to Tyler. Every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I eventually moved to Edom, which was like 15 minutes. I was living with a family at the time. It was an interesting time in my life. I was living with a family at the time, and like I was in it. I was in the same way that I loved Tulsa. I was starting to love Edom. If I was gonna stay at this job, I was thinking about becoming a volunteer firefighter. Oh, wow. I had a little gray Mustang convertible at the time. I was very excited. I was gonna get, because you're a volunteer, so you get the car that you get. I was gonna put flashers in my Mustang. It was gonna be great. It was gonna be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I ended up finding my way to Dallas because I lost that job. And my mom, when I was trying to figure out, what am I doing with my life? I'm a failure. What am I doing? Right. My mom was like, you have cousins in Dallas. And I was like, no, what? Who? She's like, oh, your Aunt Noelle, her kids, they all live in Dallas. And I was like, okay, all right. I met these people one time when I was like 12. Thanks. And she said, okay, well, as moms do. All right, well, just wanted to let you know. And so it was between going back to Tulsa, where I knew people, had a network, was connected, but I was not connected enough to get a job, which is why I had to leave, right. Or moved to Dallas, and where I knew my 5 cousins that I had met one time. So I thought about it. I prayed about it. I genuinely prayed about it. And I really felt like this is where I was supposed to be. I moved here I went on tour for a summer as a video engineer. I was not a video engineer, but my degree was in like all things multimedia. And so they're like, can you do this? I was like, I absolutely can direct a television broadcast. Oh, yes. Wow. Yeah. Let me call my professor real quick. And that's 100% what I did. Oh, gosh. And did this 3-week or 4-week tour as a video engineer. And then moved to Dallas, and I was living in an apartment with a guy who's still a friend of mine to this day. At the time, he was just graduated from high school. He was 17 years old, coming to the Art Institute, and we moved in. My furniture consisted of a twin air mattress. I was broke. See previous post. Twin air mattress and an ironing board that doubled as a desk and a dining room table.
So tripled, really.
Yes, tripled is true. And I couldn't afford an electric pump when I bought the air mattress. So I think at first I had a hand like bicycle pump with tape that I made work. It was great. It was great.
Those things like deflate like halfway through the night.
Man, it was so awesome.
Oh yeah, been there. But you kind of said it, but like, so you went to school for like sound engineering. You didn't none of this event stuff was even on your radar. Like, when did it start? But what was the first event that you were like a part of? Yeah.
So I was an audio engineer. I'm putting that in very hard quotes. When I was in church growing up, I was not an audio engineer. We didn't know what we were doing. Right. But I had hands on a board when I was 12, right?
Did you think you knew what you were doing?
Yeah, of course I thought I knew what I was doing. Of course. But the people that I was working under also didn't know what they were doing. We were the most technologically savvy people at the church. Right. One guy, we called him Uncle Nini. He actually just passed last week, was a computer guy for the Board of Education. Well, if you're a computer guy, well, obviously you understand how to do audio. And so we would go in New York, we'd go to like Sam Ash or B&H and just, what should we buy? And they would upsell us. And so that was my experience with audio. And then I got to college. And again, I grew up in Brooklyn. And so my parents exposed me to a lot. and I saw a lot. My father was a civic leader, and so I was at a lot of events, but I didn't really necessarily think about it. But I was in college, and I remember there was this. As I said, it was a Christian school, and so they would have these like semi-regular like outdoor music worship nights. And so there was one of these that happened, and I remember I'm an audio engineer, right? And so I see them, after this, what I now know as a very, very small festival for like 500 people, things that I've done time and time again. I saw them like packing up, and I was like, hey, can I help you? And they're like, sure, go wrap those cables. And I go and I wrap cables the way that I thought that I knew how. And this guy, Clinton Kennett, comes up. He's like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, they asked me to wrap the cable. That's not how you wrap cables. Oh, okay. And so this guy, Clinton, then shows me how to wrap cables, how everybody knows how to wrap cable, over, under. And he was like, yeah, do it like this. And he said, just wrap these cables. And after that, I went up to him. I was like, hey, thank you so much. If you do this, I'd love to, like, I don't know, hang out. And he's like, yeah, sure. And so he just started taking me to like these bigger production things that he would do. I then started working for the university because the university had a twice-a-week chapel service for 4,000 people that was televised internationally. And so I started as a student. I started kind of helping out on stage and getting the mic set up, and then went into a program my junior year that was an intensive production program. So we learned how to do TV broadcast, TV, film, camera, lighting, audio, everything. And we produced the weekly chapel services. So I was hands on a studio camera. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh. And then along the way I realized, as I said earlier, I wasn't a good audio engineer. I wasn't a good lighting guy. I wasn't really a good video engineer, but I understood him. I understood him well enough to have conversations with people. I wasn't a good camera person. My hand shakes. I can't help it.
Yeah.
But I realized that I was good at communicating about it to people. And so the exposure to these kind of bigger events started when I was in college. Started with me realizing, it takes a lot to bring this hour together. Oh, I can do that. Then I graduated from school, and the university used to do this annual like religious ministers conference, and the design of it had always sucked. It had been designed, it had never changed. And I was like, I can do better than that. And they were like, all right, here's your budget. I mean, the budget was nothing.
Right.
And I went and I produced a set design for this conference that is attended by thousands of people from all over the world. And I was like, and I think that for me was like, okay.
Yeah.
This is how the things that you're not good at, the lighting, the sound, the video, the production, come together to create something that you are really, really good at.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's like, I mean, it's funny. It's like, it's almost like you were always meant to be in charge, but you had to like get all the skills under you before anyone was going to let you do that. But then here we are. I mean, you're kind of at the top of the mountain in town. I mean, not to say it to be, I mean, you can be humble or not. I mean, but it's a really big accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, also like, it was intriguing to me because like, I know that you were at one point doing creative director for Canton Hall, Trees, Bomb Factory. What does that mean exactly? What is that job description?
It ended up, well, it was a very short-lived job description because I took the job in February of 2020. So the backstory there is I was at Bomb Factory for almost 5 years. And the staff that's at Factory now are to this day some of my absolute best friends. My kids call them Uncle, Tio, Auntie. These are my family. And I went and I was hired as their events director, I think 6 months after they had opened.
Okay.
And the owners at the time knew that events were going to be a thing, but quite frankly, didn't know how to get the level of events that were going to be required. And so I came in and built the events program, built all the protocols, the procedures, like all the things that were necessary for some of the crazy events that have been had at Factory. And so I always say, most people know about the things you buy a ticket to. Private events was everything else. The stuff that the public didn't necessarily know about, but it was brand launches and parties for 2000. You know, we did. I've seen Lenny Kravitz twice for private concert, right? So those kinds of things were the things that we did. And then as we were in 2019, I really started advocating, saying, hey, we need to integrate more of what we're doing. Like marketing needs a stronger like leadership's hand. I think there's a tie-in between marketing and events. And so I created a position, and I went to the then owners and I said, hey, I want to create this position, creative director, and creative director would be responsible for the marketing team. At the time, we had a part-time, sometime marketing person, and then I said, let's build this up. And so we built up a team where I was a creative director, we had a marketing director, and then 2 marketing assistants, and we were about to destroy some shit. We had visions for broadcasts and podcasts, and we were gonna, I still think the Bomb Factory is one of the country's great venues, and we were gonna make sure that the country knew that, because they didn't yet.
Yeah.
And so they said yes, latter part of the 2019 into the beginning of 2020, took the job in like January of 2020, and then, the world shut down.
Yeah.
So I didn't get a chance to actually do a lot with the creative director role. But prior to that, we had done a lot of, like advocating for how to create great experiences, at the Bomb Factory. But I did spend 4 years as their director of events. Okay. Just bringing and working with people to create sometimes absolutely crazy ideas. There was only one thing I think we ever said no to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you remember what that was? Can you say?
And actually, wait, hold on. It wasn't even us. We had someone who we had a CEO of a company who wanted to, as his entry for their annual meeting or whatever, wanted to zip line from the balcony to the stage. And, Matt Raphael, legendary production manager, was like, we'll figure it out. Sure. And his HR team was like, no. We were like, are you sure? Because but we had a twisty slide come from the second floor to the first floor before into a ball pit.
Yeah, like anything anyone can come up with.
Yeah.
You do have some other stuff that I'm assuming lasted more than a few months. Vice chair of the board for the Dallas International Film Festival.
Yep.
So that's still happening?
Still happening, yeah. I was invited to be a member of the board I think, according to LinkedIn, 2.5 years ago. And then I was invited by Scott Eustace, the friend of mine, Scott Eustace, to consider like the vice chair of the board. The chairman of the board is actually my former client at Capital One, and so it's this nice like working relationship that we already had. And so I came on as vice chair of the board I think 6 months ago. So as I said earlier, my thing is I like the arts. So perhaps over committed to things, but vice chair of the board for Dallas International Film Festival, and I think that what James and Beth at DIF are doing and have done this past year has been phenomenal. You think of this past year of the film festival was the first full year back from COVID. I know people hate saying, aren't we over? It's like, yes, but things happen in cycles. We were technically out of COVID for the 23 film festival cycle, but we weren't at the end of 22. So the interest, engagement in the 23 festival wasn't great. But 24, we debuted at 30 for 30 and ESPN 30 for 30 with Dude Perfect, and they chose us over Tribeca Film Festival, right?
Wow.
So seeing DIF really rise to the prominence, like when I first got here, DIF were the events that you went to. And so to see DIF really begin to regain that prominence as a premier film festival in the country is pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting to be along for the ride.
Because we're in Dallas. Like I moved here from LA, and I'm just like, why are we not doing bigger things? But we are. They're happening. It's not as much or as quick as some other cities maybe.
But here's the thing. They are happening. These really great artistic renaissances, these really beautiful artists, these amazing people who are creating really dope shit every day. It's happening. Dallas, historically, does a really, really shitty job of telling our own story, right? So stuff like this is great because there's so much dopeness happening in Dallas that people don't know. If you were to go to anybody walking up and down the streets in Deep Ellum who are like, here, hey, what do you do for, where do you go for fill in the blank? They've got 5 options. And then yet you have so many people who are like, what's there to do in Dallas?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I see the void, you know? Also, let's keep this list is pretty impressive. City of Dallas Art and Culture Commissioner, District 6.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite things. City of Dallas, really quick civics lesson. I'm gonna try to make the complicated to simple. Dallas has multiple city council districts, 14, 15. I always forget. I'm always off by like one number. And every city council district obviously has a city council member that represents them. They are responsible for a lot. Sanitation, police oversight, all these things. They can't obviously be responsible in every meeting. And so there are certain boards and commissions that they designate representatives to sit on and advise them of what they should do. The city council still gets to make their own choices. They're going to vote whether they want to vote, but there's a youth services commissioner who's a young person who's in high school who talks to the city councilman about what she and her peers are facing. There's a parks board and police oversight. And so city councilman for my district, District 6, is Omar Narvaez. Councilman Narvaez, District 6 is the second largest council district. Like, it stretches everywhere. The things that people most notably know are Design District, and then across the bridge, the kind of fabrication yard, Los Altos, La Bajada, that side, the other side of the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge. And so my job is to advocate for my district. My job is to make sure that the artists in the district know about the opportunities that are available for them through the city, because there are a lot. Last year, we gave away almost $8 million in direct funding to artists and arts organizations. Right, like direct into pockets for work that was being created, or work that was going to be created, and to make sure that the world at large knows how great the artists are in District 6. I will probably get into trouble for this, but it's okay. I'll take it. I truly believe that District 6 is the most creative district in the city of Dallas. Let's go, fight me. But I say that because on one side of the bridge, you've got the Design District, literally a district full of galleries and artisans and creators and makers. And then on the other side of the bridge, you've got, and this is just 2 sides of the bridge, you've got Fabrication Yard, Dallas's only graffiti park. You've got the Tin District, which has over 70 artists like Dan Lamb and Jeremy Biggers and James Rizzi and Will Herron and Jay Rhodes, like these people who are, and Sam Lau, people who are known not just in Dallas, but internationally, have all chosen to have a studio 70 to 100 artists strong right on the other side of the bridge. And so you tell me where there's that concentration of artists and what I like to call commercially accepted or consumer creativity. Tell me where else we got something like that. So it's really great that I get to, it's a volunteer appointment, so it's my job, but I don't get paid for it. But I do get to be a part of helping the city decide how they spend their money to beautify the city. My job is to vote on how to spend millions of dollars to make Dallas prettier.
That is cool.
I mean, that doesn't suck.
That was the coolest shit I've ever heard. Like, I just have a new goal I added to my list.
Well, but here's how you can be involved. We're always looking for panelists. Like, there's a lot of public art that the city funds, but because it's public art, we want the citizens, and we have to have the citizens decide what gets accepted. And so there are panels that you can join where you interview these people who are creating things, and you give a score on whether or not it should move forward and they should be funded. So even if you're not appointed by a city council member, you can apply to be a panelist, and as a panelist, you can then still have an impact on how art is created, so that the next time you're walking down the streets of Deep Ellum, you can be like, oh yeah, I was on the panel that approved that sculpture.
Cool. I'm going to look into that, and we're going to definitely link that. The last thing I have on this short, little, tiny, insignificant list of credits is founding class member of Engage Dallas. What's Engage Dallas?
Engage Dallas used to be called the Mayor's Star Council. And so Trey Bowles, who is a serial entrepreneur in the city, he was the founder of the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, or the DEC, and he approached me, I don't know, a long time ago, 11, 12 years ago. He said, hey, let's go to breakfast at Oddfellows. I was like, all right. So he goes to Oddfellows. He's like, all right, so I have this idea. I think that most people our age, at the time, we were in our 30s, most kids our age, most people our age don't really know how the city works. I was like, that's fair. Mm-hmm. He's like, but we're going to be the next ones to inherit the city, right? If we're going to be here, we're going to be here. And so he went to the two mayoral candidates at the time and said to them both, hey, I want you to come and do a debate. I'll get 1,000 people to show up, young people to show up to hear you guys talk. And they were like, you will? And he was like, yeah. So he went to one candidate and said, the other candidate's going to be there. And he went to the other candidate and said, well, the other candidate's going to be there and I'll get 1,000 people. And he's like, okay, where would it be? He said, it would be at Katy Trail Ice House on Saturday at 2. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll be there. What neither one of them knew is that there are 1,000 people at Katy Trail Ice House on Saturday at 2 anyway. Okay. Anyway. And so they saw what he was doing. It was like, oh, the youth want to be engaged. And they were. Once they got there and they were talking, they actually were engaged. Yeah. But the audience was going to be there. And so he said, what would it look like if we got a bunch of people who are leaders now, but will be leaders then, and put them in a room and created a leadership development program? And so he reached out to, this was all conversations for like 30 of us started, I think, and 15 of us ended up, I don't remember how, and we all didn't make it through. But it was wanting to help us understand how the city worked and how to engage. So we had multi-hour-long meetings with the then mayor, right? With Mayor Mike Rawlings, where he would just, I remember one, he came in and started talking, and then someone asked a question about city infrastructure, and he was like, he took off his jacket, turned to his assistant and said, cancel the next thing. And I was like, oh. So getting an opportunity to hear from civic leaders, but also community leaders about the work that has to be done in Dallas was really powerful. Now, Mayor Star Council has evolved its name into Engage Dallas, but it still does that same work. 11 years in, it's still bringing through leaders in and around Dallas who are making an impact. So out of Engage Dallas, you've got city councilmen. The city council member for District 2, which includes Deep Ellum, is Councilman Jesse Moreno. Jesse was an Engage Dallas alumnus. Okay. You've got other city council members who are Engage Dallas alumnus, both city councils here and all over the Metroplex. And so the idea behind Engage is exactly that. Trey said it best. He said, if in 20 years we are bitching about the way the city is being run and we still live here, then it's our fault. Huh. Mm-hmm. We have from now until 20 years from now to be actively involved in the process. And the thing about Dallas is it's not that hard to be involved in the process.
True. City
council decisions are made based on hundreds of people's feedback in a city that is the 4th largest city in the United States of America.
That's crazy.
Elections are decided by hundreds. We had a mayor, and this is not a political statement, but we had a mayor in the 4th largest city in the United States of America who was elected uncontested. Why?
Yeah, that's
so
wild.
It is actually really easy to be involved if you want to be engaged if you want to be. If you want to show up at city council and state your piece, do it. I have talked to city council so many times. I'm in and out in an hour. So Engage Dallas is teaching people that get accepted into it how to engage whatever city you're in, because not everybody is living in Dallas. Right. But how do you engage the city that you're in?
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe you could run for mayor.
No. People have asked me.
I feel like they have. I'm not surprised.
I don't want to be the guy in the room.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy who knows the guy in the room.
Yeah.
Who has conversations with people, because I think that there are opportunities that we have to serve that aren't just in the halls of power, such as they were. Mm-hmm. I think there are opportunities to serve a community, whatever those communities are, right? I love Deep Ellum. I truly do. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I was the odd man out. I felt like the odd man out in Deep Ellum because I didn't dress in all black. And it wasn't me. I was the guy who was showing up to meetings in bow ties. But being able to love this community while being in this community, while not having to be in charge of things. And that is, I think, more powerful, because then I feel just as comfortable walking into City Hall in a bow tie as I do walking up to a gallerist, as I talking to Frank, as I do talking to an artist, as I do going into a restaurant. I want to feel comfortable in all those environments and feel like all those environments feel comfortable with me.
I understand. I'm just saying the name recognition alone would get you votes. We're getting toward the end. I mean, you don't have to talk about it, but I just wanted to throw out, you had mentioned the Special Events Magazine 30 Under 40. You've won a Star of Texas.
Yep.
What is that?
There are a couple of organizations locally and national that are recognized nationally that are networking organizations for the events industry. And so at one time there was the Texas Star Awards, and so every year events from all over Texas would submit their event to be recognized as the best in whatever category it was. And so I've won a Texas Star Award, and then I've won Best Event Production for 2 years through the National Association of Catering Executives. Excuse me, National Association of Catering and Events. So I've won that. I've won that a couple times.
When I was doing events, if I had known there was awards to be won, I might have worked a little bit harder.
I mean, there are lots of awards.
Yeah, I see that. What did we miss? Is there something that we missed that you wanted to bring up, or what's next?
In addition to all this really cool stuff, I think one of the things that I'm most passionate about is I've got this really great family. Great family. My 2 kids have adopted the mantle of lovers of the arts. My son Ezekiel, my 11-year-old, there's a rant that I think I posted on Instagram at one point that he went on about what he didn't realize, but was talking about artist accessibility. He was like, I just don't understand. We were driving through the arts district, and he was like, why do they call this the arts district? You can't get to any of the art. And I was like, well, I mean, you do. It's just, he's like, but there should be art on the streets everywhere. And I was like,
yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And I love the arts district. There's great art. There is great art inside the walls of those galleries and those museums.
Yeah.
And 2 things can be true at the same time. So,
right. Yeah.
And so I love the work that they're doing, the Nasher and DMA and the Crow and all of them in there. And my son is in a performance right now at the Wiley doing The Little Mermaid. So I love the work that the Arts District is doing. And I love hearing from an 11-year-old that we should make it easier to get access to the art. Yeah. So I've got an 11-year-old who's really loving the arts. I've got an 8-year-old who expresses his creativity in different ways every day. Some days he walks out, I'm like, what are you wearing? Okay. All right. But he is full of love and life, and Isaac is just a joy. His name means she laughed, and he's definitely always trying to make you laugh. My wife, Heather, is a real estate baddie, and so it's really been amazing to continually watch her excel. She's won more awards than me. Now our mantle is littered with awards that she's won over the course of just 3 years of being a realtor. And so, those are the things that I'm passionate about. And then I get to lead a team of really great event producers at the Event Nerd, and it's really fun. I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. I am surrounded by family. My whole family almost lives here. My mom lives 5 minutes away from me. My sister lives 15 minutes in the other direction, and then my other sister lives 15 minutes in the other direction. Oh, wow. Remember those cousins I told you that I had met one time and for 5 minutes? They're some of my absolute best friends. My kids are growing up with their kids. Oh, wow. My kids spend pool days and summers. Isaac is at a camp with two of my nieces right now, and these are people that, if I had not moved to Dallas, if I had not listened to my mom, listen to your mom, kids. If I had not listened to my mom and made the decision to move to Dallas, where I knew 5 people that I had met one time when I was 12, my kids would not have the type of family friend network that they do right now. Mm-hmm. My kids are growing up. Family gatherings are 30 people strong. Wow. On the low end.
That's nice.
We had one family gathering, Thanksgiving, with extended family and friends. That was 70 people. Oh, wow. And this is the world that my kids, and that was without my wife's family. My wife's family is also getting ready to move here. And so it's really great. I'm really, really grateful to my mom, Leslie, for reminding me that I had cousins. I'm really grateful to God for saying, yeah, you should do this, because I wouldn't know my wife and my kids would not be growing up with when you put them all together, there are a lot of kids.
Yeah.
There are a lot of kids. And so those are the things,
Yeah.
And Dallas is dope. I want people to know that. It really is. I moved here. I've lived in a couple of places. I've been to a bunch of places. Dallas is really dope. Deep Ellum is really great. Deep Ellum is not the dangerous thing that people like to lead with, because it's easy to sell papers when you say that areas are dangerous. But come and experience Deep Ellum. Deep Ellum is one of Dallas's, if not Dallas's only 18-hour, almost 24-hour district. So come and experience it, and you won't even get all of it. So my closing is experience Deep Ellum, hang out in the Tin District, hang out in Fabrication Yard and get to know that area, and just really get to know the dopeness that is Dallas, because there's a lot out there that you are sleeping on, from food to fashion to really great experiences, that if you knew about it, if you looked for it, you'd stop complaining and you'd start proclaiming how great the city is.
Yeah, well said, and I totally agree with that. Damany, this was fantastic. I'm sure you've been to one of Damany's events, but if you haven't, look out for it. If somebody wanted to work with you, they just reach out?
Yeah. Okay. Easiest way, I'm really bad on social. I'm good at responding to things. I'm bad at regularly posting, much to the chagrin of my team. But I am, personal is Damany D on the Insta, but I am at The Event Nerd on everything.
Okay.
Like theeventnerd.com, or you can email me, Damany@theeventnerd.com.
We'll have links, but you're available. Like
I'm available. Yeah, hit me up. Come talk to me. Come holler at me. Let's create something dope. I have crazy ideas, but if you're down, let's go.
Right on. Thanks again for coming down. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you. Everybody look out for Damany, and we'll see you soon. I'd like to thank J. Damany Daniel for being my guest today. You can check out all his links in the show notes. Opening theme song, Salim Nurala, Unstoppable, and the closing theme song, Electric Ants, The Place to Be. Thank you to the Mullen Mullen Music Project for supporting this podcast. We'd also like to thank the Deep Ellum Community Center for letting us record there. You can catch the Dallas Famous podcast every Sunday at 1 o'clock on Deep Ellum Radio, and then Wednesday on all the podcast platforms. Please like, subscribe, enjoy, share, all the good things. We'll see you next time.